We're going to start off our news this week with what seems like a blast from the past. Yahoo wants to buy Google's browser.
Yeah, this is old school. Yahoo has been building its own web browser prototype for a little while now, but now it's eyeing buying Google's Chrome browser because of the Department of Justice antitrust suit against Google, which may force them to sell Google Chrome. So I think part of Yahoo's interest in this is they now have about a 3% market share for search. I'm actually surprised it's that high, but they were saying that given how many people conduct their web searches from directly in the browser address line, that Yahoo sees a major opportunity to expand their reach by having that kind of a way to have their search be put right in front of the users in the place they're most likely to use it.
And I think we know from reading some of the headlines that Yahoo isn't the only one who is eyeing up Chrome, which it could be newly single and ready to mingle, if we can use that in the tech terms. Perplexity and OpenAI have both expressed interest in buying Chrome recently as well. Perplexity's CEO, who I have to say is a great follow on social media, he recently explained that his company's interest in building its own browser is to collect data on what its users do outside of the Perplexity app in order to sell hyper-personalized targeted ads. Beyond that, we should also mention Perplexity has announced a partnership with Motorola, which is a name I don't hear a lot about
No.
in the consumer tech world, to pre-install Perplexity on Razr series phones, which can be accessed through Moto AI. So, Jeff, this is really interesting because to me, Perplexity seems like a real leader in terms of an amazing experience if you are looking for a chatbot kind of beyond ChatGPT. And then Motorola is a company we haven't heard a lot about. To see them joining together could be interesting.
Yeah, and even just the angle on Perplexity wanting this so they can sell ads kind of shows you that the monetization system for online has not changed very much in a while. And speaking of that, and speaking of companies involved in antitrust suits, Meta's WhatsApp is feeling some heat over its new optional AI tool. And what seems to be the problem with the optional part of that, Amber?
Well, I've been following this story pretty closely. So basically, in WhatsApp, there is now a new Meta AI feature. It's not yet available for everyone, but the idea is that it kind of lives in there within WhatsApp. It's been really difficult to actually turn that off. And in fact, I think because of public pressure, Meta has announced that, hey, we are going to allow people to essentially remove that from WhatsApp if they don't want Meta AI in there. Now, I do want to say as well, Jeff, that they're not the only social media company to try this. A couple of years ago, Snapchat actually built a tool or feature inside their app called My AI that sat at the top of your contacts list. They got in so much trouble for this because it was impossible to remove unless you actually paid for it, that they ended up making it optional. So you would think that Meta would approach this with a little bit more sensibility, especially when people are, I think, quite aware about the issue of having an AI sifting through what are or supposed to be private encrypted messages.
Absolutely. And like Meta says, gives in direction relative to that exact thing. Don't share information, including sensitive topics about others or yourself that you don't want the AI to retain and use. I mean, I would think most of us don't want the AI to retain and use much of anything. But yeah, it's they started off like, oh, it's entirely optional, and then it didn't seem to have any way you can remove it. So I think our listeners can at least take heart in if you kick up a big enough fuss, you might actually get what these guys promise you. And we should note that some users won't have seen this AI tool yet because it hasn't been rolled out to all countries. It's still being tested. And back in the United States and other AI news, it looks like Trump has signed an executive order to encourage AI education in K-12 schools in the United States.
There is just a little bit of information about this as far as what this means. So this is the creation of a new AI task force and grant programs to help expand the use of AI in schools, which I think, Jeff, at first glance seems like a good thing. This includes not just administration and evaluation, but also bringing AI courses and other impacts to the curriculum. But this also makes me a little bit nervous in terms of the lack of details.
I have to say too, it'd be nice to think of it as progress, but the K to 12 system in the United States is even worse than it is here in Canada. And if history is any indicator, then the priority here is probably more about disempowering teachers than helping students. So I'm a little skeptical about what their goal is with this, and I'm also just skeptical about whether after years of trying to keep kids off tablets and stuff like that, that we should be putting kindergartens in front of AI computers to teach them. So we'll have to see, as you say, not many details yet, but I think that's one to keep an eye on.
It sure is. Now, sticking with some US news and the Trump administration, they have announced that they want to speed up the use of self-driving vehicles. I wonder who influenced them on that. It's really hard to say. And this includes weakening some safety requirements and relaxing rules around reporting safety incidents. Who could this possibly favor, Jeff?
Yeah, it pretty much spells out Elon Musk pretty hard. Now, there are a couple things in here that make some sense. So if you've got cars without steering wheels for human drivers to use, then this says that you don't have to have rear view mirrors. I guess that makes sense for sure. But the US group Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety commented that it's disappointing that the Department of Transportation, quote, chose to dilute instead of enhance the reporting requirements. So that is what has me more worried, like in an age where we should have pretty radical transparency about this stuff, especially when you're getting into a product that could take your life from you. I think it's really important that we know what's going on. So, yeah, the main thing that makes me hopeful about self-driving cars is that it'd be hard for them to be much worse than human drivers these days.
I think you make a fair point. I think autonomous vehicles make a lot of sense in certain scenarios, but certainly we continue to need regulation around that. So this is one of those stories that, again, it just feels a bit like a red flag. In other unsettling news, the company Work Composer, which I didn't really know anything about them, but it turns out they capture screenshots of employees' computers every 3 to 5 minutes, and they actually work with more than 200,000 companies worldwide. And I actually know someone who was telling me at their workplace that there is software that does this on their computer.
Yeah.
This is just unbelievable.
Yeah. What's especially unbelievable is that that company inadvertently leaked over 21 million screenshots online. And the way they did this is that they put them on an unsecured Amazon S3 bucket. So this company that makes Work Composer and is monitoring employees for over 200,000 companies worldwide can't seem to be bothered to do much about security if they're storing these on that kind of storage without the security. And I just don't know how companies can feel comfortable about that, whatever they're getting out of monitoring their employees.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good thing, and just showcases, I think, a lack of trust entirely.
Yeah, and if your company is comfortable having that stuff leaked, well, what are your employees looking at? They could be looking at secret corporate plans, all sorts of private data, and so yeah, there's that risk. There's also just, I don't think, and I imagine you agree, that Orwellian worker monitoring is really the cure to productivity that some organizations apparently hope it is.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think, it's just, again, I think it signals that employers aren't trusting employees, which is just leading to potentially the erosion of relationships within the
Yeah, which is
workplace.
so important for making things work well. And you just can't out monitor some. It's so much better to be able to trust somebody to do the right thing than to keep your eye on them all the time. So, yeah, that's totally agree with you there. And why don't we switch to a happier note? A little bit of nostalgia. YouTube just turned 20 years old on April 23rd.
Incredible. Now, I'm not one to toot my own horn because I think we get tired of listening to people who were like, I was first, I did that. But I do believe that on Call for Help G4 Tech TV, I was the first person to review YouTube on broadcast television. And that video still exists out there on YouTube. Normally, I would want to share this, but I looked so young that I feel like you'll see the age gap very quickly. So you can go find that by yourselves. It is hard to believe that it has been so long. And I had a chance to read more about one of the first videos, which was from a YouTube co-founder who posted a 90-second video called "Me at the Zoo," and it was a very innocent video, and I think that
Yeah.
was kind of an innocent time in YouTube's history.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how it's evolved. We were there early with Command N and stuff like that. And at that time, it didn't really seem like it could be an indoctrination tool to train terrorists and or a way to, all the unsafe kid stuff on there and all that. So it's gone the way of a lot of our technological dreams, in that it's become a little bit nightmarish in parts, but still, YouTube's really the only social media network that almost everybody is on at some point. And it's just impressive what they've done to date, for sure.